Timmy B, I want to start off. I want to ask you before we get into the tournament, your thoughts on two things. Chris Beard getting the job at Ole Miss and Will Wade getting the job at McNeese State.
I have no problem with either one.
Yeah, me either.
I really don't. First off, the charges were dropped.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's really, if I'm the athletic director, if I'm Keith Carter, and by the way, I've known him, called his games when he was at Ole Miss. Pretty good player himself, by the way. He and Michael White were on the same team when he was playing the point guard position back in the day. I think Rod Barnes was the coach.
Rod Barnes, I remember Rod Barnes.
Had taken over for Rob Evans. Both those guys did great jobs, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I think that, just going to the tournament at that time for Ole Miss was a really big deal. And they got to the second round one year. I think it was in the 2000 season when Michigan State won it all. And they got to the second round to play against them. I think Beard will take Ole Miss to tremendous heights. And the fact that it was, let's face it. I realize there's greater scrutiny today than there was years ago. I look back at what happened at Wimp Sanderson at Alabama. You guys may be too young to remember that.
I know a little bit about what you're talking about. Can you tell our audience that?
Well, they ran him out on a rumor. It was just a rumor. The athletic director at the time simply wanted him out. And there was never any proof that anything really did happen. It was alleged. It was alleged by his secretary, who, by the way, went on to marry C.M. Newton. Ironically enough, the secretary. Yeah, that actually happened. But I was talking to Wimp yesterday a little bit, and I said, man, it is a little different now than it was in your day. Back in those days, simple allegations without any proof whatsoever, and if you didn't have the AD support, you were gone. I think in many ways, Wimp had dared to be a greater presence from a national standpoint at that time than Alabama football. You got to remember they were struggling during that period, post Gene Stallings. Mm-hmm. They struggled. And I think that the push and pull a lot of times between the, quote, football people, and his athletic director happened to be a real football guy, not a bad guy, but someone that really didn't care for Wimp too much. And Wimp didn't always endear himself either. But my point here is a lot of times we make so much in the media today, since the invention of these babies, mm-hmm. and the scrutiny is greater. But we don't know what happened, between the fiance and the coach at Texas. We don't. Chris Beard, he's a difference maker. If you don't know that Chris Beard is one of the top tier coaches, then you've been, I don't know, in a closet somewhere. He took Texas Tech to within an eyelash of a national championship. And, Ole Miss has got a chance to get him. You gobble him up. I think it's a tremendous hire. As for Will Wade, look, the problem for Will from a public relations standpoint is there only because of this FBI investigation, which turned out to be bogus. They got nothing done there. Mm-hmm. Sean Miller's now coaching a Xavier team that's a 3 seed. Bill Self is fine and dandy, thank you. I don't think there are any issues there. That FBI investigation was going to uncover all kinds of things. Turned out they were no better than the NCAA investigative team.
I'm all for
Will Wade getting another chance. The problem for Will is he was on tape, and I think that scarred him from a PR standpoint. But he certainly deserves a chance to coach again. I don't think there's any question. It's ironic that it's down the road at McNeese State. But he'll do well there in a couple of years, probably win that league title a time or two because he'll get players, and then ultimately he'll bounce back.
Yeah, it seems like the FBI just really can't figure anything out these days, and typically they're the ones causing the problems. But I do want to move on to the tournament, Timmy B. We were just talking. What do you think, in your opinion, between Alabama, Houston, Purdue, and Kansas, which is the first 1 seed that you think will be taken out of the tournament?
Well, I've got both Purdue out in the Sweet 16. I overheard you guys talking about Duke. Mm. The problem isn't just Filipowski. It's that they can run 2 or 3 of him, at Zach Edey. Multiple big guys. And they play fast. They play really quick. And now, they're able to press. If you saw the end of the game, end of that game, those young guards, those freshman guards, they can shoot it. They can fill it up when they're right, Lawyer and those other guys. But they run into trouble when they get pressure, full court,
Timmy B.
2-2-1 zone pressure. Causes them trouble. So I think they're in trouble. And I hate to say that.
Yeah.
No one wants Matt Painter to get to a Final Four any more than me. Love the guy. I mean, I do. He has a chance along with Izzo to be the banner carrier, for college basketball. But he's the best coach that hasn't been to a Final Four just yet. But I'm with you on Duke and Purdue. And I also think, the other team that I think is in trouble that is Alabama. And I'm going to tell you why. Not in the first round. Okay, you're not going to lose in Birmingham. But they better root hard against Virginia, losing before they can get to the next round.
Yeah.
Virginia is going to be a real problem. No one in the SEC, fellas, plays the way Virginia plays. Mm-hmm. And Tony Bennett and those guys, they can frustrate the hell out of you. And I think that the other factor for me with Alabama is the distraction is going to amp up. From round to round to round, it's going to amp up. Mm-hmm. Alabama, if we were playing best 3 out of 5 in every region, would win probably in straight games.
Yeah.
But it is one and done, and I think Virginia potentially is a really bad matchup. And if they happen to get by that game, Alabama is going to meet Arizona ultimately, and they got all kinds of answers. So if Virginia doesn't take them out, and my bracket says that they will, Arizona will take them out in the Elite Eight.
Yep, 2 things really quick, Coney. One, I've watched Purdue all year. They haven't been able to break the press the whole year. If I'm the 16 seed playing Purdue, I'm pressing your ass for 40 minutes. It's good. I don't care if we've pressed the whole year. We're going to press you. Number 2, Virginia and San Diego State right there by Alabama. They both play very similar. They're both athletic enough and big enough. So those are 2 to watch out for early for Bama. I agree with you, Timmy B.
Well, can I give you the problem for San Diego State is I think they're going to run into a Charleston team that is a problem. You talk about teams that are off the beaten path. You know how I feel about the flies in the ointment in college football. Well, there are plenty of flies in the ointment with regard to the 68-team field. And one of those teams, look, there are some 13-4s and 14-3s that I don't see it. I just don't see it. But when I look at Charleston, that is a team that in a 12-5 is just dynamite. And they're not much different than San Diego State. They will be a team to keep an eye on. Louisiana's going to clip Tennessee's wings too. Bob Marlin's a hell of a coach. He's got guys that can fill it up. They get up and down the floor. And the Volunteers have had some injuries now that have cropped up on them. And I think from an offensive standpoint, Rick's in some trouble. Now, his defense is good. It's forever been the mantra of his teams, but Louisiana is a bad matchup. The Raging Cajuns, ooh la la, as we like to call them here in Louisiana. That's a team to keep an eye on. And over on the other side of the bracket, as I'm looking at matchups, Drake is a team that could surprise big time. Yep. If you've not seen the Drake Bulldogs play, they are really, really good. And you might recall a few years ago, we were in Tampa. We had all of the teams in dark jerseys. All of the higher seeds won. Drake lost on a buzzer beater to Western Kentucky that year. Western Kentucky went on to the Sweet 16 and really challenged UCLA, moving to the Final Four in the round of 16. I like Drake. This is a team to keep a big-time eye on, maybe to go all the way through and to the 16. But Xavier is a team that's going to be a problem potentially for Houston on that side. I've got Sean Miller's team a 3 seed moving on, and Kentucky's in trouble. Nothing would make Bryce Hopkins any happier, the Kentucky transfer, than to load up. He finished second in the voting for Player of the Year in the Big East. Could not get off the bench at Kentucky. As badly as Oscar Tshiebwe wants it, I think Providence is a tough matchup. Now, their defense has let them down a little bit the late stages of the season, but don't be fooled by that. They ran into a really tough end of their schedule by having to play on the road at really difficult places late in the year, and they dropped a few games, fell down off the 8-9 line to the 11 line, and I think that's going to be a game that's going to be wild. A lot of fun to watch Providence and Kentucky in a 6-11 game. I've got Providence marching on. I do.
Interesting. All right, Timmy B, you were talking about Drake in the Midwest region, so let's stay there quickly. Houston is the 1 seed and Miami is the 5 seed. Two teams that I thought throughout most of the year could be Final Four teams. Unfortunately, they both get put in the same quadrant, and now both are dealing with injuries. You got Houston's best player, Marcus Sasser, we were talking about, banged up with a groin injury, and then Omier for Miami. We don't know if he's going to be able to go, and it certainly sounds like he's not going to be 100% if he does go. That's the 5-12 matchup right there at the beginning with Drake. So are you saying that Drake upsets Miami? And if so, how far can Houston how far can Houston go if Sasser's not 100%?
Yeah, I think Drake is going to be able to get possibly to that Indiana game, and they could threaten Indiana. I mean, they're that good. If I look at Miami and Drake in the first round, and I'm telling you now, I do think Drake's going to beat them. That's the problem. They lost one of their best players.
Yeah,
and you have to take that into account when you look at these teams and these matchups. I certainly did with UCLA. I would have had UCLA coming out of their region, but they lost Jalen Clark, who's one of their top players, probably the most versatile guy that they have on their team. So Kansas, that's the region that I thought looked to be the easiest, and I love the idea of UCLA. But losing that one player on a team that's not terribly deep can be problematic. Now, I would not have kept Houston in my Final Four if I had thought that Sasser was not going to be able to bounce back. I've talked to my moles in Houston. I'm told he's going to be okay.
Okay. You feel good about it, Timmy B. You feel good about it.
I do.
You put my bracket on it. I put my bracket on it. I feel good about it. All right. Timmy B sorts.
All right.
You got someone to blame it on.
No. Yeah, good. I got somebody to blame it on. Thank you, Tim. David, please continue with your question.
Someone to blame it on now, for sure.
All right. So you mentioned
how many brackets I've blown up lately?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned UCLA. That's where I wanted to go next. I want to talk about these 4-2 seeds. Texas conference champ, Arizona conference champ, beat UCLA in that conference tournament, and then Marquette conference champ. Which of these 2 seeds are you really believing in right now?
Zona. I got them winning the whole thing.
Wow.
I like Arizona to win the whole thing. My Final Four is Arizona, Marquette, Houston, and Kansas. Marquette made a huge believer out of me.
Yeah, shocking.
When I saw them at the Big East tournament. You know, they're a relatively small team. Iguodaro, they list him at 6'9". He's more like 6'8". They're relatively small, but their wings are really good. They run the floor beautifully. And I'm telling you, Tyler Kolek is the best. And when you watch him play,
the lefty.
Now again, I'm going well beyond your days, fellas. But just look up Billy the Kid Donovan when he played at Providence. Now he was smaller, not nearly as athletic, but he had the hair. And you watch him on the floor, and you're going, he just blew by that guy. Did you see what he just did? He is the most underpublicized, great player in college basketball. Even though he's the player of the year in the Big East where all the media meccas are, he's just such a difference maker. And when they get the kid Jones playing well with him and he's knocking down some shots, it just makes the game so much easier for them. And Shaka's smart. That little blip on the radar screen at Texas was just that, a blip. They should have given him more time. They shouldn't have run him out the way he did. But at Texas, if it doesn't go well, that's what happens in both football and basketball. Shaka's got these guys believing, and their unity is really incredible. They will get pushed. I mean, it won't be easy for them, coming through that bracket because it is loaded in the East. But I think the familiarity and also where they get to play and the recent success at Madison Square Garden, which is where their regional finals will be, is going to be a real advantage for them.
All right, Timmy, Justin Decker wants to know, how will his Auburn Tigers do in the NCAA tournament?
Wrong team. Iowa can fill it up. Wrong team. Murray is an incredible player. What happened to Iowa last year? I had them going to the Final Four, and they couldn't hit the ocean.
They screwed me too. Richmond beat them, didn't they?
Oh, the Iron was downright rude that day. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but it's true. When you play during the regular season, you play with the balls that are with the home team, and you play with in the tournament, you play with the same balls, same basketballs that you play. When you go into the NCAA tournament, the NCAA has a deal with obviously everybody. So the official NCAA tournament ball is this. Well, those balls sometimes are slippery, and they also have way too much bounce to them. It's sort of like going to the state fair and trying to hit those 3 free throws so you can get the big dog for the little lady.
Ball's huge, the rim's
like,
little.
The rim's a little, and you're like, wait a minute, why am I paying like $2 and I got to hit 3 shots with this thing?
Yeah,
that happened to Iowa in that game, and I talked to Fran McCaffrey about it at the start of the year when I had Iowa, and he mentioned that to me. Now his sons can shoot the lights out, as you know. He was like, Timmy, I said, I had no idea that you guys weren't getting to use the balls that you were comfortable with. And this is true for all the teams. Auburn can win the game. I'm not saying they can't, but the pressure on them to win because of where the games are is immense. And I just see problems for them offensively. As good as they are defensively, they go through massive.
Yeah, you can't shoot.
They go through massive droughts. And you do that against Iowa, they'll shoot you out of the game because they've got so many answers. Keegan Murray's brother, Chris, is a great talent. The McCaffrey kid can shoot the lights out. Auburn's got to turn it into a frenetic game, junk it up, muck it up. Bruce Pearl is great at that. He's done it in the past. He's a great tournament coach. McCaffrey, as a coach, as good as he is as a coach, has never been past the second round.
That's
but you know
crazy.
What the problem has been? If you know what the problem is, fellas? If you look at a team like Iowa last year, look at a team like Purdue this year, that one day playing on Sunday, and I know it means a lot to the Big Ten to be the game preceding Selection Sunday, huge ratings. Everybody's watching ball at that point. But having to play Sunday, late in the afternoon, and hustle in to watch the selection show, that's one day of rest and practice. If you get sent to the Thursday, Saturday, as opposed to the Friday, Sunday, that's what happened to Iowa last year. They got sent to a Thursday, Saturday. That means, you're leaving on Tuesday. Okay. Looking at tape and you're practicing Monday and you're leaving on Tuesday. And I think a lot of times the Big Ten suffers from playing their conference championship late in the day on Sunday before the selection show.
Well, nobody hurt my bracket more last year than Virginia Tech losing in the first round and Iowa losing in the first round. Both teams that won their conference tournaments.
It blew me up.
Yeah, absolutely.
That blew me up too.
I was like 6-0 starting the day before Iowa lost to Richmond. You get to 4-0 and you start looking around.
Yeah,
like
okay.
hey, maybe this is the year.
Good.
I got to 6-0. I'm starting to send that text, and then all of a sudden, Richmond. I mean, literally, Keegan Murray couldn't hit water if he fell out of the helicopter in the ocean last year. And his brother Chris is good, not as good as Keegan.
Yeah.
Keegan's balling in the NBA. I will say the one advantage Auburn does have, Janai Broome down low. Iowa, they've got some taller guards, but they don't have a post presence that can really scare you. But Timmy B, it's all. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, Timmy, Tyler Jarvis with a $5 donation wants you to know, Timmy B, you were one of the reasons I almost flunked out of college. I would skip class on the regular to listen to your show. You, sir, are a legend.
Yes.
Well, that's very nice. By the way, fellas, I do want to get a little mention in for Fritz Mitchell, the director of the 30 for 30 ESPN film series, the Southern Hoops documentary.
Man, I got to watch that. I want to be able to sit down and binge watch it. I can't watch one episode, then wait and do all.
Right. It's a good time to do it when you're in the tournament season. So in between games, just to get you more motivated, dissecting both the women's game as well as the men's game from really the beginning of the sport at the collegiate level to now. Bruce Pearl was all over it last night. So was Dale Brown. I hope the governor of the state of Louisiana, all right, and Mary Werner, okay, and everyone on the board of supervisors that looked so foolish takes a look at the segment on Coach Brown last night. Yeah. We know what we saw on January 4th of 2022, and we're not going to ever unsee it. And not only the impact Dale had on basketball alone at LSU, but the impact he had on the NCAA. He recommended 40 changes he wrote him a long, trust me, all of us that knew Dale know we've gotten long emails. He sent 40 changes that he believed for player rights needed to be fixed and fixed quickly. Of those 40, 33 have been enacted since he stopped coaching in 97. He was a forerunner. He was way ahead of his time when it came to player rights, so much so that he alienated himself from a lot of other coaches that didn't like him talking about such things at the time. But you need to watch that. Those guys did a hell of a job.
We definitely, I'm definitely going to.
You know what? Also, Timmy B, we had a caller a couple of weeks ago, Chuck, called in, and he was telling a funny story about Timmy B on an airplane. Maybe something about Gilligan. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What did you do?
What did you do?
What did you do?
That is a great story. It is. It's in the 80s. Walt Hazzard was coaching UCLA. I was living in Bristol at the time. Our crew flew out to do the USC-UCLA game, which was going to be for the regular season. And at that time, they didn't have a Pac-12 or Pac-8 tournament. And I was going out to call the game with Dickie V. And when the game was over, you know, I'm just flying in a car to LAX to get on a red eye, you know, to fly back to Connecticut through Chicago. I'm on the plane, and let's just say it was cocktail hour.
Yeah,
all right? It was cocktail hour. And in those days, flight attendants would actually serve up whatever you wanted while you're still on the ground, particularly on a red eye. Right, really? So they wanted you asleep, so they wouldn't have to serve you when you got in the air. So I'm in the aisle seat, first class, and not because they gave me first class seating at ESPN back then, because I'd already earned enough miles.
There you go.
Up, all right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm sitting on the aisle seat, and here comes some of the crew members by. Now I'm wearing a blue blazer, little ESPN logo back in the old days, and people are walking by, and most people, even in California, didn't know what ESPN was.
Yeah.
You know, they thought it was like for hemorrhoids or something.
I thought it was when you could read other people's minds.
Right. so people are kind of walking by in the aisle. I'm sitting like 2B, and all of a sudden, this guy in a trench coat, really disheveled, sits down in 2E, I guess, across the way. And he immediately gets a Cavazier. And it follows that up with another Cavazier, and he's knocking it down quick. I mean, the stewardess could not get through quick, and so we move forward about another 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm having a little. I think my drink of choice back then was blackjack and Coke. I was still young, right?
Nice.
So we're rolling along, and some of our crew members are stopping by, going, "Great job, Timmy B. Great job, Timmy B." Hey, and I would be like, "Hey, you guys were great too. Thanks for all the shots." UCLA had won a close game. So all of a sudden, this guy, and I knew who he was as he turned to me. I just knew. And he said, "Well, these people all know you. Who the hell are you?" I'm still a young guy. I'm probably 30, 31 years old at the time, something like that. This is about 87 or 88, right in there. And I said, "I'm Tim Brando from ESPN. How are you?" And he said, "I'm all right. I'm Blanken Gilligan."
Gilligan.
I am Blanken Gilligan. So I just, you know, I'm like hitting the floor. I'm laughing so hard.
Yeah.
And he said, "What do you do?" I said, "I was calling the UCLA USC game tonight, and I'm flying back to Connecticut." And he said, "I'm going to a Blanken shopping center in Carolina tomorrow."
We need Timmy B's story hour. Like once a week on there.
One of those early brushes with celebrity that I had in the 80s.
There you go,
the
man.
uncomplicated 80s.
Yeah, Eaton Gilligan, man.
Yeah, you love it. You love it. Timmy B,
I'm
it's
Blanken Gilligan.
man. Well, it's always so fun to have you on here, my friend. I really appreciate you coming on. Hell of a year calling the games, man. I watched as much as I could. You guys absolutely killed it again, and looking forward to the seasons keep rolling over and rolling over and rolling over. But as usual, just great stuff.
Thank you, fellas. Great being with you, Jake.
Yeah, hey, hit him straight, man. Hit him straight. Good luck.
I will.
All
Cheers.
right. Tim Brando, one of our favorites.
Fantastic.
We talked to that dude for an hour. Hey, YouTube, make sure if you got a little time today, which you do, you're obviously watching this, that you hit that subscribe button, turn that notification bell on, and hit that like button, because we'd really appreciate it, and it would put you on the nice list early in the year for Santa Claus. That's huge.